Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery podcast, is brought to you by Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction and recovery. Join your hosts,
the Podfather, Jersey Ed,
Miss Meg,
as they break the silence and speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, welcome everybody. Friends in Recovery podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles.
Hi, everybody. Jersey Ed.
What's up, everybody? Miss Meg here.
Miss Megan.
Miss Megan, how are you?
What's up, guys? How
Who's
are
the
you?
guy next
Hello.
to you, Megan?
Yeah, Chris Cuddihy just here for the color commentary.
Came for the laughs.
Very colorful.
He's just here with the British accent.
That's
That's
right.
all we
That's
need.
That's
Absolutely.
it. That's all we need.
We hired him
Add a
for
little
that.
class to the podcast.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's going to take a lot more than this accent.
We got a Jersey, we got a Boston,
Yeah.
we got Meg, and now we got you.
Some orphan from New York and England. What can I say?
That's right. Sweets, how are you, Sweets?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank
Good.
you for asking.
You look good over there.
I do, yeah. Wear my suit.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. The pocket.
Colored pockets.
Yeah,
square,
it looks good.
Plaid's
Looks good.
coming back.
It is, yeah. It looks good. You like this elbow patch?
The elbow patch and those shiny patent leathers you got on.
That's
Nice.
right.
Green
I think we need
patent
to-
leather
Green,
shoes.
that's right.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think we need to talk about the platform green flag.
That's
Not
right.
the shoes.
I am short.
So is
Yeah,
that
I'm
what
short.
recovery really bought you?
It is. This is all I got. I got a suit. No, like, so things should be fine now.
Anybody out there that's trying to get sober, I think you're not going to have fun when you do get sober. I'm sitting with four people, the five of us in recovery, and we've been laughing for 20 minutes.
We have. This is
About
wonderful.
Very
nothing.
true. Yeah, very true.
And no substances at all, except for some cigars.
Little cigar smoke.
Yeah,
That's about
exactly.
That's it.
So-
We're all choking on
it. So,
those.
Megan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I missed you. I haven't seen you.
I
in a
know.
few
I
weeks.
haven't seen you in a minute.
I seen her the other day on her podcast.
I did.
She does a podcast also, The Addictionary.
Yeah, we had Dad back up and running.
Oh,
and
good.
Seen that?
we got to get Dad on here now as soon
Yeah.
as he's rested and with this back surgery.
Yeah,
he's
whenever.
doing all right though.
That was a good show, by the way.
You like
Your
that?
last show, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the what show was that?
but the
the one-
breathing.
Breathing, yes.
breathing workshop?
My wife was rolling. I think she texted you.
She texted me when she saw it.
I know.
That's
She was rolling.
holotropic breath work.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
She made you say that. I was like, oh my God, Sweets must
Holotropic.
fucking love this one.
Yeah, that was wild. That was
Yeah,
wild. I
yeah.
talked all about it. It was good stuff, though. I mean, what did
Yeah.
you think? Did you think it was weird? What I was saying? Obviously, it was weird what I was saying, but
No, it was. It was. It seemed fabricated at first, but I was like, no, but that's really what she went through because I could see that. No, seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
the way you said it, I was like,
There's
"You
no way."
Are you kidding me? It's bullshit. Like, she just said it because everybody else in the room was saying it, but I know you, and I don't think you would do that.
Nope.
So,
definitely didn't make that up.
but I was at Tony Robbins, and probably if I didn't go to Tony Robbins a couple weeks ago, I would have said you definitely made it up. But I am telling you that the only way to explain Tony Robbins, and if nobody's been there, if you've been there, send me an email or whatever. If I had the money to send each one of you guys, I would. That's how
He
what an
scares
impact.
me. I wouldn't.
No. This was how did I put it? It's a God, what the hell did I say to the guy I was with? It's an orgy of happiness, an orgy of. It was just amazing. 2,300 people on the same fucking level
Yeah.
of just saying that they can do whatever is put up in front of us. Real quick, I want to just tell you, we were there 5 days. Day one. We went to almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and he was on 14 hours day one. I thought he was going to come in and just talk an hour and then go. This guy was on for almost 14 fucking hours talking. Made sense to me.
How many people? 2,300?
2,300 people.
Think of the money he's raking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what I thought he was doing. I thought he was going to go to the back room and collect his dough. Man, he put in. It was amazing. But the second day we were there, we had to start a company. We had to open up a company and start a company and raise money. I was like, there's no fucking way we could do this. It's just not going to happen. We did it. We raised $500-600. We're a 401(c). We have all kinds of 3 different charities, blah, blah, blah. We put it all together. There's a website out there. And we raised $500, but the people who won, because of the contest at the end of 5 days, they raised $40,000
Nice.
sitting from a chair in West Palm Beach while we were listening to Tony Robbins for 13 hours a day. So
Wow.
you put what it is, guys, out there in recovery land. Whatever it is, you put your mind to it, you can do it. There's no more I can't in my my vocabulary anymore. Impossible. It's impossible now. And the weird thing is, and I've been getting really emotional too, Megan. You probably felt the same thing with your breathing.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the last 2 weeks, I just been I had a meeting, a marketing meeting, and a marketing meeting.
Sorry.
And I was crying on the marketing meeting. That's how powerful it was. Wake up, Podfather. We listen to your
You're getting
stories.
emotional at it.
I know. I think I did too. So, anyways, you bring the show up there, Podfather.
I will. I'll bring
right,
it up.
all right.
So anyway, I want to hear from Miss Megan because she's always got some lively entertainment.
You didn't like my entertainment?
No.
Listen, we take her on as a new co-host, and I'm like nobody now.
And drop
You're
living
way
now.
down the other end.
God.
You were never anybody else.
I know.
And Megan, after you, we want to hear from Chris.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Chris is here.
Ed, go check,
Sweet, and then sweets.
Ed, go check on the cars. Will you?
Oh my God.
Miss Megan, how you been?
I'm fantastic. I'm in the middle of interviews for Practicum, which is another training that I'm going to go through next year. So that's where I just came from today. So
Stressful?
Very stressful. They put me on the spot. They asked me to do a role play. Was not prepared at all. So hopefully
Wow.
I passed. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure you did well.
I think I did all right. I don't know. It's exciting.
How about the guy sitting next to you, the British guy there?
Yeah. What's up?
Hey,
What's up?
man. I got nothing.
You got a lot.
I got
You
a
got
lot.
a lot, dude.
I don't know.
Believe me.
Listening about Tony Robbins, interests me because Tony was a big part of my recovery. And I think the shame is with him that he was elevated to cult status.
Yes.
And that's the risk we take in
Yeah.
recovery is
Yeah.
that we get this whole thing of, all of a sudden we become a cult.
Yeah.
And, Podfather, you said it. Hey,
I know how
he's
he
rolling
feels,
in the
believe
money.
me.
Yeah, he's rolling in the money
Yeah.
and everything else. And yeah, he is. He's raking in the dough, but he's also responsible for a tremendous amount of
Of
recovery.
success,
in
no
that.
doubt about
And
it.
he's just giving you basic
doubt
stuff.
about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
If someone don't drink and go to meetings,
Yeah.
it's almost that. Don't put your hand on the heat; it's gonna burn. But we have to be told that as addicts and alcoholics and everything else. Yeah. We have to keep being told that.
Well, it's funny you say that because as an addict, I never said no. I wouldn't even be thinking of getting high, and someone would have something and say, "Hey, you want to smoke? You want to snort?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." I was completely doing something that had nothing to do with drugs or alcohol, but if someone offered it to me, I'd say yes. And when I finally said no, I didn't realize I was saying no, but 16, 18 months into recovery, I realized, why didn't I ever say no?
Yeah.
It's such a basic concept.
Yeah.
Hey, I got clean the first time I got clean. It's 3:00 in the morning. I tap on my window, and I look out the window, and it's a friend of mine, and he goes, "Hey, can you go get some blow for me?" I'm like, "What are you doing?" I got up, I got dressed, and I haven't got an 8-ball for it.
People pleasing. That's
Yeah,
what we do.
absolutely. And she goes, "This shit's gotta stop."
Oh my God. How about you, Sweets? What have you been up to? What's
There he is, sweets.
I've just been sitting in the background and trying to make you guys sound good and look good.
And you do that. Like
good
this,
work.
telling me to move
hard.
away.
Yeah, it's a tall order.
Yeah.
It's a tall order.
I don't mind wearing the hat, sweets, but if you tell me to put a mask on again, I'm not doing it.
Listen, that was off camera. Don't
You're
worry
not
about
Tony Robbins, right?
it. That was off camera.
Do you have something to read for us, or
I do. Something about today's topic.
Yeah.
What is the top? What is the topic today?
Megan, this is your topic.
Well, I think when we incorporate Buddhist philosophies into our recovery program, whether it is that we're following something as structured as Refuge Recovery and the Dharma Punks, which we're going to talk about in a sec.
Great book.
Yeah, and I think you can sort of use these principles in any sort of movement that you're trying to create in your own life, let's call it, where your goal is self-improvement. And I think when we can incorporate some of these other philosophies, and some people think of this as sort of a religious take, I consider myself to be more spiritual than anything and sort of figure out a way to not necessarily buy into an institution of religion, but incorporate these philosophies. I think it's been instrumental in my life, and I've seen it be instrumental in other people's lives
Well,
too. So.
we appreciate you sharing with us, and it's something I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't I read a little bit about what it is?
Go for it.
You
All
do
right.
that. Can we take a bathroom break?
I mean,
While you're reading?
No. Just sit there quietly.
Feel free.
Matter of fact,
My
yes,
chair
go
will be
ahead.
gone,
Go-
and my
go ahead,
microphone will be
please, yeah.
gone.
Hang on a second.
It's
Give him a
really hard
napkin.
for him.
Give him a napkin. Yeah.
This is a fucked up show, guys.
So says you.
You want to go to the bathroom.
All right, let's
ahead,
give
Sweets.
our listeners a little knowledge here. So, Refuge Recovery is a recovery society grounded in the belief that Buddhist principles and practices create a strong foundation for a path to freedom from addiction. I'm reading this right off their website, by the way.
Okay.
The Refuge Recovery program is an approach to recovery that understands all individuals have the power and potential to free themselves from the suffering that is caused by addiction. We feel confident in the power of the Dharma, if applied, to relieve suffering of all kinds, including the suffering of addiction. This is a process that cultivates a path of awakening, the path of recovering from the addictions and delusions that have created so much suffering in our lives and in this world. Refuge Recovery believes that training our hearts and minds to see clearly and respond to our lives with understanding and non-harming can free us from the addiction. In the beginning, some of these practices may seem confusing or counter-instinctual, and indeed some of them are, but we believe they provide a clear path to freedom. Whether this path is familiar to you or new to you, we all benefit from the support of a community of peers who share this journey. For that reason, Refuge Recovery seeks to support those on this path by building an extensive and comprehensive network of Refuge Recovery meetings and communities that practice, educate, and provide Buddhist-inspiring guidance for anyone seeking recovery from addiction. So now you know all about it.
Nice.
Well read.
Wow.
Well read.
Very
Well
good.
done.
Now, when you said, did you say Dharma bums? Is that what you said?
Yes, I thought the same thing.
Dharma punks.
Oh,
P-U-N-X.
punks.
And
Okay.
explain that. I don't understand that. What is that?
So
Sweets
Sweets,
or
do you know the
somebody?
exact definition of a Dharma? I know there are things like Dharma sits where you can go to a meditation temple,
Right.
I guess, and you can listen to sort of the leaders or the facilitators actually talk about, they bring up a topic, and then there's sort of an open discussion. There's a teaching component of it, and then there's a meditation component of it, and there's a conversational component of it. That's what I know when it comes to like the idea of Dharma.
So Dharma, a noun, an Indian religion, the external and inherent nature of reality, regarded in Hinduism as cosmic law underlying right behavior and social order. In Buddhism, the nature of reality regarded as a universal truth taught by the Buddha, the teaching of Buddhism. So it's, I know in Refuge Recovery they use the 8 simple truths of Buddhism. And so, I think Dharma is a way of looking at life, a way of looking at the world, and really just the inherent truth and knowledge of doing good, the next right thing. I mean, in AA, it's the next right thing. And I think all of us, when we're trying to become better people, it's about, recognizing your connection with, whatever your spiritual higher power might be, or whatever your spiritual truth may be, and just being the best version of you can be, just doing the next right thing. And
So this is more based on spiritual than a religion? Is that, it's still a religion though, right?
Well, I wouldn't call Refuge Recovery, I wouldn't say it's a religion. Buddhism, yeah.
Buddhism, yeah.
But I think even just the idea of Buddhism of itself sort of falls, for me, more in the realm of like spirituality than it does
Yes.
the sort of institutional religion. But I think, anytime we can add these principles, and I know a lot of people that are part of the abstinence-based programs that add Refuge Recovery meetings, for example, as part of their plan to increase their capacity for spirituality, and it's sort of a good way to just begin to learn how to meditate and give yourself the space to actually be still and practice that.
And I think, Sweets, you said before we went on air is that it's more like an accessory to recovery.
well, for some people, it can be their primary recovery method. I think there are a lot of people that choose it simply because it does give them access to a better version of themselves. It does lay a better foundation for them to build their recovery. But I know a lot of people who have chosen another personal recovery path, whether it's therapeutic or the step work, and then they add this in as a way to center themselves or meditate or deal with what the rest of the world has to offer to them as they're getting sober or staying sober.
The reason I asked, excuse me, I'm sorry, the reason I asked whether you said punks or bums, Jack Kerouac, the great beat poet from the 60s, who was a Lowellite, born in Lowell, Massachusetts, died in Lowell, Massachusetts. He had a book called The Dharma Bums, and I just pulled it up on my website here. And basically it's about his trip. It's almost like on the road. He talks about being out in Big Sur and meeting with all these people, and it was a lot of spiritual stuff that happened, but it was just very interesting. But it never dawned on me that was a religion. I didn't know where the word came from, so it's kind of interesting.
Well, I'm again, this Tony Robbins thing put me into this whole spiritual thing. I'm telling you, the last 2 weeks it really changed my life. I'm looking at everything so much differently. I added meditation in. I meditate every single day. I'm reading something every single day. I never read a book. Well, I shouldn't say that. Earlier in my recovery, I did, but
So you read my book?
I did skim
Busted.
through it.
Yeah. Give me the book report. Well, it's a book about a
Reading is
What book is that, Sweets? Is that a good plug for right now? But But I've been reading. I read 2 books already in 2 weeks, and that's like, that's really good for me. Besides Sweet's books, that's 3 in like the last year. So
I think the other thing too, Ed, to speak to your point of like how you were moved by this experience and having it be a room of people that all sort of were like-minded and moving towards the same goals and could conceptualize forward movement, not coming from a place of no, but a place of yes. When you're in a room with everyone working towards that, and that's what I've experienced in some of these refuge recovery meetings, is that everyone is sort of there for the same goal. Everyone's there with the same intention, and everyone's willing to sort of put the work in order to make that happen. And when you feel that, honestly, at an energetic level as part of the collective, it's incredibly powerful. And I think when we can convene groups of people, whether or not someone's making a financial profit off of it or not, what does it do for us, and how do we benefit from it? And that's the benefits that I've received from incorporating Buddhism philosophies and then finding groups that actually practice that in my recovery.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're all seeking knowledge. What do you go to college for? You pay. My daughter's going to college. They're paying $30,000 a year for her to get an education. So
Ooh, that's cheap.
Yeah.
You want to swap places?
I know. Well, that's just the beginning. But,
Exactly. Yeah.
but
Yeah, I know, I like that.
go
Way
to a breath seminar or a Tony Robbins or whatever it is, it's worth the money. I am telling you, I got $1 million worth of information the first day. Really did. And it sounds like you got $1 million in that 12 hours that you were there.
I'm forever changed as a result of that experience,
yeah.
and it's for the better, for real.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm reading this book called As a Man Thinketh. It's James Allen.
It's a really small book.
It's a very small
That's
book.
why you should read it.
It's a
Doable.
Big words.
It's a
I
quick
don't
read.
want our listeners to be confused about what you're saying. So please continue.
It's a tiny book. It's a good quick read. So I read 30 pages in like 2 days, and that's good for me. So, but I'm analyzing the book. But there's something in here that kind of sticks with me, and I think goes with this. Good things and good thoughts and actions can never produce bad results. Bad thoughts and actions can never produce good results. And that's something I think that's along the lines of kind of the meditation, the believing in yourself, the kind of like you were saying, Sweets, the living the life that you want to live and not becoming I don't want to say a bad person, but you put those bad thoughts in, you don't get good thoughts out. You know what I mean? And it's just been the last 2 weeks have been incredible. So I thought this was a good topic about the Buddhist and what is it called? Refuge Recovery.
Yeah.
Refuge Recovery. Yes.
Your recovery program.
Mine, the one I started.
one you
Obviously,
created.
yeah, he's pointing right at me.
Well, you read it all. You know about it, don't you?
I read it off the website. Yeah. Any one of our listeners could get exactly what I just got. 2 clicks away, guys. 2 clicks away.
No, I have no real knowledge of this. I think the thing is that what I find is the biggest block is the religious aspect so often coming into a program. And being able to separate that and say, look, this is about spirituality, which people can understand on a better level. So we're not blocking them out. We're not restricting them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get Podfather.
Nope. Time for a break. Friends Recovery Podcast. We'll be right back.
All right.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Friends in Recovery Podcast. How's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Still alive? Still awake?
Good. We're all alive. Let me get into some business here.
got
real
some
quick,
business
guys.
over there,
I
right?
do, Mike. I do. So we like to thank first of all Genesis House for the Friends of Recovery podcast. Without them, we couldn't do it. Please make sure you subscribe to the Friends in Recovery podcast. It's powered by your likes, follows, subscribes, and shares. do us a favor and leave 5 stars, sweets, 5.
All of them.
Right, there
all
you go.
stars.
And
We
they're
want
right above my
all
head
the
right here.
stars.
Same
They
1, 2,
will
3,
be.
4, 5.
Yep.
Okay, 5 right there. All right. And Friends in Recovery community of support events across the country, sponsored by Genesis House. Basically, it's our alumni meeting that we open up to everybody. There's one in Palm Springs, Florida, Marlinton, New Jersey, Newtown, Connecticut, and Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. All these meetings are going on, and they're thriving, and we thank everybody who listens to the show and shows up at all these meetings. And if you want to have a meeting in your area, we don't care if it's Texas, Hawaii, wherever it is, call us. We'll give you kind of a template, get it together for you, and get a Friends in Recovery meeting going. Real quick podcast pick of the week is Soberful, the podcast. Host is Veronica Valli and Chip Summers, both in recovery together, almost 50 years. Lots of stories, messages and experiences, and occasionally some helpful advice in their words. The podcast is for anyone that wants to live a sober life, or just getting sober, or is in long-term sobriety. I only listened to a few of them. It's a pretty good podcast. I believe they're from Britain or something, so you would like this podcast.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
I just figured if you talk that way, you would like it, right? You like Benny Hill, don't you?
Of course.
So there you go. You like this one. but it's a really good podcast. Check it out.
Yeah,
so
they speak his language.
they do.
Yeah,
They speak that
English, right?
mate.
The
Is that how you
King's
talk?
English.
Not the version that we have destroyed. But English.
That's all right. Parts of England, they've destroyed it too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Courtney,
it's
right? I mean, is it Courtney? What is it?
Courtney.
Yeah, Courtney.
Cockney.
Megan.
There you go.
Megan's sitting next to you, Podfather.
I've only been there once.
She was nice. Courtney was nice.
Courtney was nice.
Cockney, different deal.
Wake up, Mike. It's not 1922 yet.
Okay.
So where were we, guys?
We were talking
Refuge
about
Recovery.
spirituality and
Refuge Recovery. So, Megan, lead us in again and with your spiritual advice and get us going.
Well, I think, and this is sort of like being coupled with this, and I've talked about this on the show too, this Jungian class that I'm taking, so this Carl Jung theory of psychology. I think what it comes down to is like, when we, in Sweets, you said this at the interventionist training, and it stuck with me because then I heard it again in this class, and I'm like, all right, this is synchronicity, like I'm supposed to hear this. If we use a logical approach to get somebody who's operating at an illogical level, then we're using the wrong intervention. And so we have to sort of meet people where they're at and accept the fact that their healing might be in a realm that we actually can't logically make sense of. And so when we get people to accept the idea of surrendering or using acceptance in the model of in order to move forward in their recovery, I think we're asking them to tap into this mindfulness space that they may not be familiar with, and sitting with themselves and, asking their mind to be quiet and having stillness is the exact opposite of where their life has brought them to this point. So I think it's unfamiliar for a lot of people. I think it's scary. I think a lot of people that I work with, it takes a lot of time and practice to actually feel something in the meditation. But I keep it consistent with how I see people work towards the goals in recovery overall of like, let's just keep trying it until we actually get something from this, because we're not all lying about the fact that it actually works.
It's so true. When I have clients come see me, no matter where they're at, most of them are really in a bad way. They're either going to court, they're coming from court, they're going to have to be in court for the third time. They've lost their license. They have no money. It's never someone comes in and says, "Hey, how you doing? Let me pay you up front. Everything's good. You want to go to lunch?" It's always there's always a crisis. I put out fires every day, and I try not to bring that into my own life, which is hard sometimes because in the middle of a normal day, I'll get a call or a text and something bad's going on. Someone's been locked up, they're in jail, or their probation has been violated, and it's really difficult. But sometimes, and listen to what you just said, Megan, it makes a lot of sense because sometimes I have to get on their level. And even as a therapist doing this 20 years, I forget that sometimes. And they're a pain in the ass to me, and I have to forget. They're not here because they need to look at my angry face or my disappointed face. They're here to tell me their problems, and I'm here to listen. And I got to do that in a better way.
Yeah, and we have. Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. In the Sweets, is that something that you're teaching? I guess, right? In your trainings, is that what, Megan? That's what you said, right?
Well, yeah, you had said one point of like we can't use logic to get somebody to buy into what we're saying.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at what's wrong with somebody that's struggling with addiction, one of the things is that there's a cognitive disability. You know what I mean? There are parts of the brain that are just not functioning. So if you're approaching somebody that is cognitively disabled and you're bringing, reason to the table, you're not going to reason with someone that's unreasonable. If a symptom of that illness is that somebody is in survival mode, they're running on how to survive the moment, how to survive the feeling, and you're like, okay, well, we're going to sit quietly for a minute. That's actually really, really bad. I mean, that's not possible for them to sit quietly without all the things they've been trying to hide from coming to the surface and making them want to get high again. Like, you have to understand the illness if you're going to approach it. And, I look at it like, if someone doesn't have the use of their legs and you're like walking in front of them, you're like, well, this is how you're supposed to walk. There's so many other things that need to happen before that person's going to get up and walk. They need physical therapy. They need time to heal. They need to understand, their muscle limitations because they haven't walked in so long. So there's so much there first.
Well, let's all think back. All of us have some time here in this room, probably over 100 years in this room of recovery. Let's think back, early recovery. Was anybody able to sit in a meeting or sit in a therapist's office for 15, 20 minutes and without either getting up, going to the bathroom, getting another cup of coffee, thinking, all right, it's an hour, but it seems like 10 hours. It was tough to sit in a meeting. And then now you're asking somebody to meditate. I just started meditating. It's just, this is 20 some years into it, and I just learned how to meditate. And it's amazing. It's an amazing tool. It's an amazing thing to calm yourself down, to put yourself out of whatever you're into. But I couldn't have imagined the first even 5, maybe even 10 years of recovery doing that. I couldn't sit still, So yeah, Sweets, that's absolutely right. You got to figure out what's their level and kind of deal with them that way.
You just can't use logic. You can't sit down with someone and say, these are the pros and cons of your drug use, or your drinking. This is why you should stop because it's negatively affecting your body. Like your brain doesn't have the ability to learn through consequence of action or rational discussion. Because if that was the case, the first time you got sick or the first time you had a medical condition, you'd just stop and be like, whew, I'm not going to do that anymore. But that's not how addicts roll. Like, that's not how I rolled. You know what I mean? I faced tons of consequences. It was like, won't happen again. Won't happen again. Definitely won't happen again. Clearly, that's not going to happen again. And like
sitting in jail cells, that's not going to happen again.
This is the last time, I swear. And so, the brain doesn't, it doesn't respond to reason the same way you might with someone else. So instead of sitting down with someone like you would, you guys are in recovery. I think we're all fairly well, aside from the fact that we're still kind of sick, but fairly well and reasonable, meaning that if you were doing something, I could sit down and probably talk you through it. Therapeutically, talk therapy might be a very useful tool at this point because those parts of your brain are open to suggestion, to reasonable discussion. You can weigh out pros and cons. You can, assess your life and what you want it to be like versus what someone's helping you understand it really is. Like, that's all great. But not when you're sick and confused. It's just not applicable.
So when do we apply this rational recovery? I guess it's individually, right? I mean, Megan, what would you suggest?
I think from a psychological perspective, and I'll just throw some neurobiology in here, when someone's amygdala is activated because they're in fight or flight, we can't just expect people to then think rationally in those moments. And so I think we have to create a container for the chaos, and we have to allow them the safety to give up the control, which is their drug use, that they're controlling that and inadvertently controlling everyone around them, and they're actually controlling the chaos, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if we can get them to buy into the fact that they can actually let the controls go and they can accept this other way and try it, let's just try it, it allows the intensity of that fight or flight to settle, and that's why the meditation ends up being so helpful, because then we pull in the compassion, and then we're working out of the heart center, which then adjusts the whole vibrational frequency of the whole body, and I know that sounds crazy.
If I can get a client to just sit and breathe with me in a dimly lit room for 30 seconds.
Without the police being there.
Yeah.
Sirens again.
Sorry.
I get them to be I get them to be right where they should be. And also I'm getting myself to be right there too.
Exactly.
It's a tool that works. 14 months sober, major panic attack. I'm in the shower, all of a sudden I think I'm dying. I literally get out of the shower, put on a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, went right to the hospital because I thought I was literally having a heart attack. I'm 33 years old, I'm dying. And sober, 14 months. Vitals were fine. I went to another hospital. I didn't believe them. I left there and went to the other hospital. And I did this so many times that it scares me when I look back on it. But my brain was healing. I had no idea. I ended up in Children's Hospital having all these electrodes put on my head so they could figure out what was wrong with me. And basically, it was just my brain healing. But I'm so glad I had all those panic and anxiety attacks, because now when I have people that have panic and anxiety, I can explain to them. In no way does it make them stop having that, but at least they have some knowledge that maybe this will go away. He's telling me it will, maybe it will.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's where the meditation comes in. The meditation is almost, I'll be honest with you, almost completely wiped out my anxiety in the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
On the way here, I knew Chris was going to be here at a certain time. I knew Mike. We had a meeting, and I knew how to beat. And then the GPS takes me off some side road. I'm like, motherfucker, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, Mike needed some time, or Sweets needed some time, and to do some things. And Chris was going to be a little late, and just relax. So I turned on.
Fuck the Podfather.
Yeah, fuck the Podfather.
That's funny. That was his text to me.
Yeah, that's what he texted me anyway.
I know,
but
he sent it to me.
I turned on the Calm app, and again, they're not a sponsor of ours, but they want to be. They can email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. Calm, if you want to.
It'll be up on the screen.
Yes, there you go. He can get us that way. But I turned on the Calm app, put some very relaxing music on. Next thing I know, I'm parking in your driveway. It was like, holy shit, man! I just needed to relax, but I just had to work my way through that. Now, early recovery, could I do that? I don't know, but I guess that's part of this rational recovery. Like that kind of kicked in. That's part of it. I guess.
Isn't addiction all about self-soothing through challenges? You know, I mean that's really what we're doing. And then you take away the substances, you take away the solution to what we're feeling. And then all of a sudden you start feeling feelings for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And man, let me tell you, that's some tough stuff. So like if you're out there and you're early in recovery and you're feeling feelings for the first time and they feel terrible and they feel awful and they feel like, 16-year-old kid just got broken up with, no one understands my pain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is the worst thing ever. It'll never get better. And, that's just because you're new to it. Think back to when you were a little kid and you felt something for the first time and it was new and it was terrifying and you didn't know how to deal with it. That's what being early in recovery feels like. You're now feeling them for the first time without a solution.
Absolutely.
And just like a kid that has to develop life skills to deal with it, to grow up and face what the world has to offer, so do you early on in recovery.
Yeah.
And having accessories like the steps and, Refuge Recovery and Smart Recovery and any therapeutic additions you can add, like
Sponsors,
meditation.
working the steps.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff. I mean, those accessories right there are the tools that you use to build those life skills so that you can create a new shell.
Yeah.
Right? You guys have heard me talk about how the lobster grows, right? On the show. I'm sure you all have. I know you do.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
And, you need a new shell. You need an appropriate shell for
And
the
what
world
show
we
is
live
that?
in. The shell.
What show is that?
I don't know. One of the best ones.
The Shell Show.
One of the better shows.
It was the Shell Show.
I'm
for
giving
Shell
you
Shocked.
Pedal your show. Collateral
show?
damage.
I didn't do it on Collateral
Oh, you
Damage.
did it here?
No, I did it on one of your shows, and then I talked to her at the training. But I was just saying, all right, give me a minute. So for those of you that don't know, all right, there's a video
trying to help you,
on
Sweets.
YouTube, all right, and if you Google Rabbi and Lobster, it's the only video that will come up, I promise.
Okay, all right, good,
And
good.
so,
Safe bet.
Rabbi Twersky, and he tells a story about how lobsters grow, and the fact that, lobsters are a hard-shelled animal with squishy, soft insides. And so,
Very tasty.
Very tasty. And in his video, they say, they start off, they're just like an inch or two long. And he says if lobsters had doctors, they'd all stay that big because when the soft, squishy part grows up against the shell, it feels stress and pressure. And instinctually, that's the catalyst for the lobster to go crawl under a rock, molt, cast off its shell, and then create a larger, more appropriate shell.
Oh.
And so they go into a safe environment like we go into treatment. They cast off their shell and get vulnerable like we do in treatment. They create a new, more appropriate shell for their size and age, and then they swim around safe out in the ocean. And, the idea is that when we're using substances like drugs and alcohol to self-soothe and to deal with what life is throwing at us, we're still wearing that really, really small shell that we were wearing at 15, 16, 17, 18 years old.
So true.
Except now we have 25, 35, 45, 50-year-old problems, kids, debt, life, legal issues, and the shell just doesn't do the job anymore. So, things like this, finding a safe place to go, cast it off, and add these accessories and develop life skills is mandatory.
Love that. Yeah, that's so true. Jesus
Absolutely.
Christ.
I think for me too, I don't know about you guys, but my anxiety got the worst. My anxiety and depression got the worst probably third year into recovery, and I had to really get back to the basics and figure out
Once you go
another
past the
solution.
pink cloud.
Whew.
Yeah.
That pink cloud lasted a while,
does,
and then
yeah.
wow, it came crashing down bad, real bad, and I had to figure out a solution.
Yeah.
It's
What
like
about
being
you,
out in
Chris?
the ocean. You can't see the land.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
This is for real now.
Yeah.
Chris, you're here shaking your head. You've been through a lot.
No. I look at this and I'm kind of looking at it from a union perspective, as a member of a large labor union in New York and having to deal with mostly blue collar guys. Our stuff is crisis mode all the time, and so we haven't got time as a peer-to-peer counselor. And I get a call from someone's boss and they say, hey, look, we need to get this. We're going to Section 75 them. They're going to lose their job. I'm fortunate that we have a very forward-thinking union around now, but I can't get that member into a quiet place because what I'm trying to do right there and then is get them into rehab or get them into a program that will save their job. And you know, our pitch as a union is I got two things to do. One, to save your life, and the other is to save the job. And so when that's commingled with so many people. Their job and their life are one. How do I get them to that place? I've got to get, I don't have time to put them in a room and turn on a light for 15 seconds, to paraphrase. So it's tough. And I come away, I've never been more stressed in my life. And as far as, meditation, I started meditating about four weeks ago. I've noticed that it's been a big change. I do my workout.
So you did 4 weeks of meditation, huh?
I do.
Solid?
Yeah, solid.
He just finished this morning.
I fell asleep.
Is that like a record?
I'm doing forgiveness. Listen, I'll row, I'll do whatever. I'm doing 4 weeks of meditation. It's just like he read your book.
That's right. Yes. Good book. Read it.
I wanted to do a book report on my book.
What was it called? Running with the Sharks, biting a shark, something lions. And yoga too is very powerful too, and I think that would fall under that. I also vowed to do some yoga twice a week.
Don't do it.
I love it. I am hooked to it. My daughter got me hooked to it the last 2-3 weeks, and I love it. It just fits everything we're talking about here. It just fits right in. It's so peaceful. It's great just to kind of just to meditate and kind of try something new even.
Yeah.
Let's all take a second and meditate and picture Ed yoga. Just picture Ed doing yoga.
Without a shirt.
Everybody just picture Ed out there.
Just take a minute.
Terrified by that right now.
Hey, everybody. Great show.
Yeah, it was a good show, guys.
Friends in Recovery
Excellent.
podcast.
Nice work, guys.
See you
Love
soon.
it.
Stay sober, everybody.
That concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for supporting those on the path to recovery and for keeping this valuable resource free for our Friends in Recovery community. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. If you can't get enough of Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, you can catch them on Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast, available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube.